Welcome to r/NeighborsFromH. In this subreddit, people share stories about their crazy neighbors. Before we start, if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to click subscribe to join our friendly community. And now, without wasting any more time, let's dive right in. Neighbors ran over our fence. Dad installed concrete fence that wrecked 8 of their cars. I saw your crazy neighbor stories and now I bring you my father's that is stuck in my memory. English is not my first language and I hope I did not make many spelling mistakes. We live in a small private neighborhood. The neighbors are related to us, more or less, distant relatives. Everybody here is a complete nut job. They were constantly arguing over decades before me or my brother were even born. Our property line is kinda like a square and it is surrounded by a road from 2 sides. Keep in mind that on one part of the road we let our neighbors use 1 square meter of the land so they could use the road safer and not damage our property. This is crucial information. This road is made of gravel. The neighbors want my parents and only my parents to pay for the entire cost to lay an asphalt road. My dad and my mother are constantly fixing potholes for 90% of the road, so naturally our neighbors thought that they will pay for the asphalt road. Fast forward 20 years, the road remains gravel-ish. Nobody wanted to pay for the asphalt road. One day my neighbors order a massive truck filled with tons of wood. The truck driver runs over our fence. Nobody wanted to pay for the damage. Our fence is made out of multiple bushes, trees and a little bit of metal fence too. These plants were now completely destroyed and a part of metal fence completely bent. We had to replant these plants and place a new metal fence. My father told me this was not the first time this happened, but actually the 3rd. I could not believe it when I heard this. So this is where the revenge begins. My father is a police officer in the department where they mostly handle frauds, drug busts, etc. He knows the law well. He dug up the property line marker and placed plastic barrels filled with rocks on our property. In the next 6 hours, 3 of our neighbors came knocking on the door because they hit our plastic barrels filled with rocks. They were angry and wanted to call the cops, but they never did, because everybody knew that little part of land was still our property. One neighbor in particular threatened my dad that he will throw a pickaxe at my father's back. Over the period of 1 year, these neighbors hit the barrels so much with their cars that the barrels are now worthless. My dad was furious and he changed his petty revenge into a pro-revenge. He cut some wood to use it as a mold. He bought cement, sand and metal poles. One peaceful afternoon, my father and I cemented that whole part of the land and placed some lovely flowers on top. So when they hit the concrete, they can smell our flowers of victory/defeat. As we expected, 5 neighbors in total wrecked their cars on the new fence and nobody came knocking on the door. You know what kinda surprises me there? That after the first incident, the word apparently did not spread around that it is apparently a bad idea to drive into the fence today. By the way, did you guys ever have any neighbors that always seem to step foot on your property when they shouldn't? Feel free to tell us in the comments. A crazy neighbor stole my fish, so I pooped on their porch. Yeah. Okay, so this was a long time ago, probably about 14 years ago. We, mom, dad and 2 kids had a nice 2-story in a rural subdivision and I loved it. Our backyard abutted a cornfield. We had 2 cherry and 2 apple trees. There were a lot of neighborhood kids to play with. It was nice. Our next door neighbor, however, was an insane person. Let's call her Crazy. Crazy thought it was appropriate to fetch the morning mail while wearing nothing but an open robe. She thought it was appropriate to trim our rows of Sharon bushes, which we planted specifically to not see her anymore, even though they were well on our side of the property line. She kindly harvested our strawberries for us while we were away one weekend and left a small pile of unripe and underdeveloped strawberries on our porch to rot for a day before we got back. She once forced the latch on our screened back porch to use our hot tub and when confronted, she said,
Only wanted to make sure it was still working, because there had been a power outage that day.
Yeah, knocking fuds. The final straw for me as a 17-year-old was when we were on a 5-day vacation and came back home only to find that our butterfly koi were missing. By that I mean my koi, that I had bought and raised for 3 years in the 400-gallon pond that I myself had researched, designed, dug and built with my own money. There were 6 of them and they were gorgeous, though I may be a little biased. They had a very nice pond filter, lily pads and duckweed and were fed once a day with a high-end koi food. Before we left, I gave them multiple vacation feeder blocks. They were fine. But of course, when we got back home and I immediately went to check on them, I freaked out when I saw that all 6 koi were missing. Did a feral cat get them? A hawk? What could have happened? After a bit of panic and talking to my parents, they suggest asking our neighbors if they saw or heard anything. The ones on the right, nothing to report. The ones on the left, aka crazy, are insane people.
Oh good, you're finally home. Yes, we have your little fishies. We did not know when you would ever be back, so I kept them safe and sound for you since they would like to have died. Left all alone in that little pond. Here they are.
And then she showed me her back porch, which had 2 half-filled 5-gallon buckets on it with 3 koi in each, my koi, swimming around in green poopy water, and I almost punched her in her stupid effing face. With all the restraint I had in me, I picked up the buckets, went through her fence gate and started the acclimating process of putting these koi back into their pond. She yelled to me that I was welcome as I walked away, and it took everything in me not to call her a dumb effing Karen. Okay, long story longer, my fish survived their ordeal and I had an enemy for life. About 2 weeks later, after playing some late night Halo, I had to poop, and on my way to the bathroom I had an epiphany. What if I pooped outside? What if I pooped on her porch? She would have to clean it up, she would have to touch my poop. And that is exactly what I did. Probably about midnight then, I quickly went next door, dropped True on her porch, squatted over her welcome home mat and left her a couple of nice locks to clean up. Then I snuck back home like a ninja with no one the wiser. Next afternoon I rode past her house on my bike and the poop was gone. She had cleaned it up. I had literally shat upon her doorstep and she cleaned it up. I felt like a king, I felt amazing. And so I did it again and one other time. I pooped on that woman's porch 4 times over the course of that summer because she effed with me and my fish. F her. Mind your own damn business and stay out of our yard. I don't know about you guys, but I would definitely not want to be this guy's enemy. By the way, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and like the video if you want to support me. All support is very much appreciated. Crazy neighbor shoots across road and house. So this happened today and I'm still angry and anxious about it hours later. I moved in with my SO about a year ago. His father lives next door to us. Our neighbor lives across the road from us. This neighbor has had a vendetta against SO's dad for years. 25 years at least, and no one knows why. So with that out of the way, let's get down to the story. My SO and I were spending the afternoon sighting in his scope on his new hunting rifle. Now, he has not ever done this before and it took him a while to get the hang of it. Almost went through a whole box of ammunition. Before he went for the last round of shots to dial it in, we heard gunfire nearby. First shot we heard, we checked to see if it was his dad killing a snake. Not him. Second shot, we figure out where the shots are coming from our neighbor's way. Third shot, a second later, we heard what sounded like bird shot hit the roof of the carport. SO's dad yells to let them know that they are shooting over his property and putting us in danger. Several minutes later, there's a fourth and final shot and more bird shot falls down on our house. Last straw. The police are called, a sheriff comes and hears our side of the story and then goes to the neighbors to find him picking up his shotgun shells off the ground. But the sheriff does not arrest him because the magistrate tells him not to. He comes back over to tell us this, and it was obvious he was not happy about this. His fists were balled up and he was tense. He was relaxed on his first visit. Needless to say, we did not finish sighting that rifle today, and we are all pretty mad about him not getting arrested. SO has 4 step siblings who live next door. If they had gotten hit with the birdshot, it could have hurt them. If he does it again, I don't think he will get off with a warning. Please tell me what you think about that story, but that sounds to me like some small town in a rural area where the police is friends with basically every single person in the city and are willing to let crap like that slide. But anyway, let's continue. New next door neighbor. A new neighbor moved in last week. A woman about 30, her 7-year-old son. Nice, I thought. I'm finally rid of the crazies who set bonfires every night with aerosol cans on so it exploded constantly. Peace, maybe. Maybe not. Jenna, honey, when you said your son was a bit excitable, I said that's fine. I have a 4-year-old, he's lively, I get a bit excited sometimes, I'm autistic. I did not realize you meant that if I dropped my outside bin lid closed, your son would scream for 20 minutes straight. I did not realize you meant that if I run past your windows when I'm trying to get to the bus stop on time, he would throw stuff at me. I did not realize you meant that when I come outside to ask him to please stop kicking his ball at my kitchen window, he would spit at me and start screaming again. I did not realize you meant when I put my washing out on the clothesline, he would pull it all down and stamp it into my lawn. I did not realize your child was the Antichrist. You said you had seen doctors, he's not autistic, does not have ADHD or anything that could cause him to act like this, other than the fact that I've come to realize is that you baby him. He gets his own way, always, and he hits and screams if he does not like something. Jenna, sweetheart, I feel for you, I really do, but please seek help. Next time your kid abuses me or my son, I won't be as nice. Seems to me like the typical entitled mom who thinks her little angel can never do something wrong and then lets everything slide. We have certainly heard of those people before. What a way to wake up. The guy above me, I call him Steve, has always been very loud. He yells a lot when playing video games, he's very heavy-footed and slams the toilet seats separately whenever he uses the bathroom. I do not like Steve. Tell me why this boy decides to jump out of bed this morning. Not like a little hop, this guy jumped. I keep thinking how he could have made such a loud ass noise, and the only way I can think of is that he made the conscious decision to stand on his bed and just effing go for it. Like, how the F does this grown ass man have so little manners? You live in an effing apartment complex with people living below and around you. I stayed up late studying for an exam. I am so effing tired and this crap just made me so effing angry. Sorry for the rant. Guys, you cannot imagine how annoying that is when the neighbors, usually in Germany though, decide to hammer away to get some new pictures on the wall or something at 7 AM in the morning on a Sunday. Seriously, sometimes it's worth it to get up later to record these things. But then again, next issue is that starting around 10 or 11 o'clock, the airplanes start coming and they never stop. Neighbor's off-leash dog attacks and injures my dog, sister and myself. Now she's trying to sue me even though we were the ones with 29k in medical bills. Our new neighbors moved in next door about 6 months ago and have 2 large Labradors who are let out the back door into the open yards each day and night. One of their dogs is very sweet and well behaved, while the other is rather aggressive and will charge at people and other dogs. We have asked them multiple times to walk their dogs on leashes and explained about the city leash laws of our state and county, but they refuse to keep them on leashes. 2 months ago, one of their labs charged at myself and my small beagle from across the yard, and the dog's owner just sat there and watched as I tried to fight off her dog while picking up my beagle. The dog bit my arm enough to draw blood, and I kicked her dog to get it to stop and back off from its attack. The owner went into a rage over me kicking her dog and the next day filed a complaint against me with our HOA. That backfired because the HOA contacted me for my side of the story and ended up charging the neighbor a $250 violation of HOA agreement fees. I did not file an animal control report because my bite was not that bad and I thought the HOA fine would set them straight. Also for the fact that it's not the dog's fault, her owner is an idiot. They continue to let their dogs run free and we have multiple videos of them letting their dogs run free and of the aggressive dog running onto our porch and throwing her body against our glass door trying to get at our dogs inside our house. By the way, sorry to interrupt, but has anyone else read the book from Stephen King about that huge dog that was friendly in the past but then gets totally insane and terrorizes the neighborhood? It's an older book, I don't remember the name, but that really reminds me of that story. Anyway, continue. Last month, I confronted our neighbor with the multiple videos and told her she needed to walk them on leashes and we were no longer willing to be afraid to use our back porch or walk our dogs anymore, and told her this was the last time we would be nicely asking her and next time we would call animal control. Fast forward to 6 days ago when I woke up to the sound of one of my dogs, for lack of better term, screaming. I jumped out of bed and ran into the yard where my sister and one of my beagles was being attacked by her dog. My sister had curled around our dog and was being repeatedly bitten by the neighbor's dog. I tackled the neighbor's dog and, not proud to say as a lifelong animal lover, proceed to grab the dog by her neck and force her to the ground by her neck and shove her head into the ground while practically sitting on the dog to control her. The neighbor finally got her dog inside. The results were my dog had a huge chunk ripped out of her throat, multiple ribs in both ears, 6 broken teeth on her bottom jaw, a shattered front paw and broken arm, and multiple bites to her face and rib cage. My dog needed all broken teeth removed, pins in her arm and paw, dozens of stitches and a skin graft. Had no idea they could do this for dogs to close the hole in her neck. My sister needed 38 stitches from the bites she received. I ended up with 29 stitches from bites I received, and all 3 of us are on a plethora of antibiotics and follow-up care, including rabies shots for my sister and I because her dog had no current shots. Those shots are not pleasant in any way. Our combined medical/vet bills are $29,000, with still needing follow-up visits for all of us over the next few months. She is refusing to pay anything at all and claims she's not at fault because our yard is not fenced. She's also claiming she's going to sue us because apparently I broke 2 of her dog's ribs when I tackled her to the ground. I cleared out my savings account of $3,500 to make the basic payments to save my dog's life and don't have any more money to hire a lawyer. We can hardly afford the co-pays on our insurance to get our rabies treatments and prescriptions filled. I filed to get an advance on my pay, but it can take up to 2 weeks to go through, and I was served with a court summons today for injuries to her dog and her pain and suffering from the trauma of her hurt pet. The claim also states that I intentionally caused harm to her pet and used unnecessary force to subdue her pet. I am a 4'10" female and my sister is a 4'8" female. Her dog is almost as big as I am. I really don't know where to start on how to deal with this. I feel like we have a solid case due to the videos and the paperwork from the HOA. For the first time she tried to blame us. I also have messages that span her time as our neighbor via the Nextdoor app, where she admits to walking her pets off leash and her refusal to stop because
it's my house.
To be honest, for me that is an absolutely horrifying story because I think I mentioned this before already. I am kinda scared of big dogs, especially with idiots as their owners. What would you suggest the OP to do in that case? I'm really surprised that the neighbor is even going to court, provided that videos of the accident are available. If you have any interesting suggestions, please feel free to post them in the comments. I'm curious. Cannot do anything without my neighbor losing her mind. Been living at my home for 2 years. The house needed major renovations and the street were told when we first moved in our plans to renovate the house. We told our neighbors weeks in advance that work was starting with our living room and kitchen, with all neighbors being cool about it. Once work began, the next door neighbor started kicking off and crying over the noise. She would have a go at us and our builders weekly. We kept it civil, emphasized it needed to be done, and apologized for the noise. Around this time, she drove a large van into a family member's car that was parked outside my house and ran into her house to hide. The van then rolled into another neighbor's car as she did not put the handbrake on. We confronted her as we had seen the incident where she cried and begged for us not to report it, insurers or authorities, so she agreed to pay for the damages. It took her a month to hand over the money. 7 months after we had our living room and kitchen remodeled, we began work on upstairs with the bedrooms. Again, weeks in advance we informed all our neighbors about this, going door to door, and they were all fine about it. Day 1 of the work, upstairs the next door neighbor lost her mind arguing with us and the builders, with this continuing throughout the rest of remodel on a daily basis. She called the council, who did nothing as everything was above board. She would then cry to us and other neighbors. Again, on our end, we kept it civil by apologizing for the noise, but emphasized it needed to be done, which it did as the upstairs was very unsafe. Next tackle was our garden. The garden was like an actual jungle, and once we finished cutting everything, she was happy with her new views. We then put up a 6-foot fence for privacy as there was never a fence here. She was informed and said she was fine with it, saying she will miss seeing us every day. We hated not having a fence, nobody would go out in the garden as she would be out there looking down, watching everything we do. We put the fence up and on the day she went wild trying to hit the workmen to stop them putting the fence up, videoing them, calling the police and her landlord. As the fence was up to regulations, there was nothing they could do. She spent the best part of a year arguing with us about the fence, constantly shouting abuse at us, friends and family. At this point I had become annoyed, no more apologies, and would mostly ignore her. Several times we have overheard her slagging us off and making up stories to random people she does not even know, such as salesmen and council workers. She's had arguments with every single neighbor on the street and disliked by every single one. I and other neighbors on the street have called her letting agents repeatedly to complain, but they have never done anything. A year after doing the fence we remodeled, our bathroom, which was the last part of remodeling the house, needed. She did her usual thing of verbally attacking us and the builders throughout the project. We can do nothing, absolutely nothing with this woman around. Even when we are in the garden, maintaining the lawn, painting the walls, staining the fence, she's there complaining that we are doing these things. On bonfire night 2017, we had a small and controlled bonfire, but we did inform all the neighbors, who were fine for us to do this, and lit the fire in the evening once all our neighbors' washing was off the lines. The next door neighbor then went into a panic, thinking that somehow this controlled small fire was going to burn her house down, and cried to us to put it out before getting angry and screaming at us. The woman is an alcoholic, she does not work, so every day after 2 p.m. she begins drinking wine and vodka. This is probably a factor in her erratic behavior. She attacks random people who park outside her house. It's not private parking, just street parking, and I mean every single person. Just so you can picture this woman, she's very skinny, her face looks similar to Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars, but with bangs, constantly has a lit cigarette in her hand and rocks jeans with gems on them. She has a boyfriend who lives there, and you never hear a peep from him other than him spitting phlegm into their garden multiple times a day and on the street. I would love to get something done against this woman, but don't know where I stand legally. What can be done? Well, in that case, I suppose the best solution is to move out and move somewhere else. And once again, that story shows that the worst drug is alcohol. But guys, either way, I hope you enjoyed the content for today. And also, please let me know if you want to hear more Tales from the Front Desk stories, because quite frankly, I was a little bit surprised about the low view video yesterday. But then again, maybe that's just YouTube doing their magic and not recommending / showing my video to my subscribers. So I hope you have a fantastic day, and I see you again tomorrow. Thanks for all your support.